Hi, first grade friends. I'm so glad you've come to Story Circle. Let's read this story about a ladybug, Bright Beetle by Rick Kristowski. At the end of summer, when the grass turns golden, the meadow hums with buzzing insects, a shiny ladybug zips past a bumblebee and catches hold of the stem of a black-eyed Susan. There's the bumblebee. The ladybug climbs into the cool shadow under the flower petals and lays 9 yellow eggs. Then she lifts her wings and flies away, leaving her young behind to take care of themselves. For several days, the eggs are safely hidden. Then one morning, they turn white. It's time for them to hatch. One by one, tiny ladybug larvae break through the eggshells. Immediately hungry, they scurry off in all directions, looking for food. But one egg remains unhatched. Finally, it wiggles, then it jerks, the end splits open, and out squirms the last little larva. With all her strength, she pulls her body free. Instinctively, she nibbles an aphid near her eggshell. Just one isn't enough for this appetite, though. By dawn, the larva has eaten 15 of the little green pests. Her skin feels tight. She has already outgrown it. She attaches her hind end to the bottom of a leaf and hangs down. The old skin splits along her back, and the larva, wearing a larger and more colorful skin that had been growing underneath, wiggles out. Eventually, her head and legs become glossy black in the sunlight. The larva is now a fierce purple and orange predator. She hunts for aphids and gobbles them up one after another. Over the next several days, she sheds her skin 2 more times. And what is that called when an insect larva sheds its skin as it grows? It's a wild word. Molting. One morning, she discovers a cluster of aphids massed together at the base of a leaf. She crawls onto the middle of the aphids and begins to feast. Unfortunately, there's time to eat only a few. Look who's coming. Now, y'all might remember from when we studied ants. Do you see this sweet juice that's coming out of the aphids? Remember we learned about a creature that likes to milk aphids for the honeydew? Who's coming to scare off Ladybug? Without warning, sharp jaws pinch her side. Then they bite her leg. The larva tucks her head under her body and thrusts the sharp bristles covering her back into the air. Like a pack of wolves, ants attack her from all sides. It is their job to protect the aphids from danger. They like to eat the sweet honeydew that aphids expel while feeding on plant juices. The ants quickly chase the larva up the flower stem, nipping at her the whole way. Then they rush back down to stand guard over their aphid herd. Luckily, the larva is not that hurt. Her bristles are a strong shield against ant attacks. When she reaches the top, the larva finds a smaller group of unguarded aphids. She devours as many as her stomach can hold. The next afternoon, the larva climbs onto a flower petal. As she sheds her skin one final time, it is pushed down into folds. The larva looks completely different. She's covered by a hard orange pupa with bumps and black spots. Inside this pupa, the larva transforms. She develops wings on her back. One pair will be the strong shell that covers her second, more delicate pair of flying wings underneath. Her entire body is outfitted in tough insect armor. So what is that called when a larva enters this pupa stage, the rest and change stage, and goes through metamorphosis? Remember that big word, metamorphosis. And look, here she comes. After 5 days, she's ready to leave the pupa. She leans way back and then forward and back again. The walls loosen all around. With one final push, the pupa breaks open. Shining in the sunlight, a splendid little beetle crawls into the world. At first, her shell is pale and soft. The fresh air begins to harden it. And do you remember what these hard wing covers are called on a beetle, friends? Elytra. Yeah. The ladybug climbs down the flower stem onto a leaf and spreads her crumpled wings to dry them. Over a couple of hours, her shell becomes bright and fiery red. It sends a message to her enemies. Don't eat me, or you'll be sorry. Nearby, a praying mantis watches with powerful green eyes. He's not worried by bright colors or flashy warnings, at least not when dinner is within his reach. He readies his claws and waits patiently. When the ladybug's wings are stiff as paper, she's ready to fly. She flaps them. Whir, whir, whir. She pushes hard against the air. Her body feels lighter as it lifts into the sky. For the first time in the ladybug's life, her tiny feet leave the flower where she was born. Flying is such a wonderful new experience, she doesn't notice the praying mantis moving closer. He blends into the tall grass so well. He's well camouflaged, isn't he? Just then, like a flash of lightning, the praying mantis reaches out and snatches the ladybug from the air. He brings her up to his mouth, but before he can take a bite, the ladybug has time for one last defense. Do you remember what this defense is, friends? A bitter orange fluid oozes out of her legs. The praying mantis gets a drop of it in his mouth and is so shocked by the awful taste that he drops his prey immediately. Oh, goodness, what a close encounter. The ladybug falls to the leaf. She lands on her back and holds her body still. If she doesn't move a muscle, the praying mantis might think she's dead. But he's hungry and determined. He readies his claws to reach for her again. Suddenly, a dragonfly flutters in front of him. The praying mantis swivels his head to watch it. He cannot resist the flapping wings. The ladybug watches as her attacker turns and follows his new victim into the tall grass. Maybe the next time he meets a beetle with a bright red shell, he'll remember the terrible taste and think twice about eating it. Sure that the praying mantis is gone, the ladybug flips onto her feet and crawls to the edge of the leaf. Her strong shell saved her from any real injury. Cautiously, she looks around, raises her wings, and flies off the flower. Later that night, frost settles on the meadow. Many insects, including aphids, do not survive the cold. The ladybug is affected too. The cold makes it difficult for her to move her muscles. She warms them the next morning by sitting in the sun. Remember, insects are cold-blooded creatures. Her flight is clumsy at first, but in time it becomes more controlled. She passes a butterfly sipping nectar deep inside a flower. She sees a grasshopper chewing a blade of grass. But there are no aphids for the ladybug. She knows it's time to say goodbye to summer and find a sheltered place to hide for the winter. An old rotting branch at the foot of a birch tree looks inviting. The ladybug climbs through a hole in the bark and down into the comforting darkness of the decaying wood. A small group of ladybugs is already there. She joins the others, and huddled together, they sleep. All winter long, harsh winds whip across a thick blanket of snow. Deep inside the log, the ladybug rests quietly and waits for spring to come. When the warm sun melts the snow, the ladybug will lay her eggs on an aphid-covered plant, and a new generation of beetles will brighten the meadow. And the cycle of life begins again. Look at these beautiful beetles all hibernating together. Like many creatures, ladybugs are solitary animals, but they like to hibernate with other creatures so they can stay safe together. Well, thank you so much for coming to Story Circle with me today to hear the story of Bright Beetle.